When we think of the Qin Dynasty, our minds usually jump to those incredible terracotta soldiers, right? Or maybe the legends of a mercury-filled tomb. But if you strip all that away, what you find underneath is something, well, it's way more modern and frankly terrifying. We're talking about a state that was less like a kingdom and more like a machine, a brutal, hyper-efficient machine built to forge an empire from law and iron.
So, how do you even begin to solve a problem like this? I mean, that was the fundamental question facing the state of Qin. For over 200 years, the land we now call China had been a nonstop battlefield. This was the Warring States period, where rival kingdoms were just locked in this relentless fight for survival. The very idea of order was just a distant memory.
The Qin solution, it was radical and it was absolutely ruthless. They weren't interested in inspiring people or winning hearts and minds. No, they wanted to engineer a society from the ground up, building a totally new kind of state that was founded on one single principle above all others: absolute, uncompromising control. Okay, so to really get the Qin machine, you first have to understand the world that created it. Imagine a reality where war isn't just an event that happens sometimes, but it's the constant background condition of your life. This was the crucible that forged this new, hard-edged approach to power. I mean, we're talking about centuries of non-stop bloodshed. The chaos was so deep and went on for so long that by the time the Qins started their radical reforms and finally conquered everyone in 221 BCE, the idea of a gentle, moral government, that probably sounded like a dangerous, naive fantasy. So if the Qin state is this giant machine, what's its operating system, right? What's the core ideology, the software running in the background, driving every single decision? Well, the answer is a philosophy called legalism. And let me tell you, legalism is cold, it's pragmatic, and it is deeply cynical about people. It starts with this core belief: people are fundamentally selfish. They aren't going to do the right thing because it's good. They'll only do what's required when they're forced to by clear laws and the very real threat of severe punishment. It's basically a complete rejection of any trust in human nature. And this right here shows you just how revolutionary legalism really was. The dominant philosophy at the time was Confucianism, which argued that people are basically good and just need moral role models. Legalism comes along and just flips that entire idea on its head. The goal wasn't a society full of virtuous people. The goal was an orderly state, period, no matter the human cost. And this is the crucial point right here. Legalism wasn't about trying to get rid of humanity's dark side. No, it was about harnessing it. The state didn't care if you were a good person. It just wanted to channel your self-interest, even your most violent impulses, into something that was useful for the empire, like, say, serving in its unstoppable army. So the big question is, how do you actually do that? How do you take this philosophy of control and bake it into the literal foundations of an empire, making it a physical reality for millions of people? The answer was standardization, but not just any standardization. We're talking obsessive standardization. The first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, he understood that if you want to project power across a huge territory, you have to eliminate all the differences. Every part of the imperial machine had to be interchangeable. Okay, so this right here, this was the hardware of control. You enforce one script, one currency, one set of laws. Suddenly, the emperor's commands can be understood and obeyed instantly, everywhere. And think about this, even standardizing something that sounds as boring as cart axle widths meant that supply wagons and armies could move without friction on a brand new road network. The entire empire became one single, integrated system. For the longest time, what we knew about Qin law really just came from the people who hated them. But then, in 1975, archaeologists made this absolutely incredible discovery that gave us a direct look into the cold, logical mind of the Qin bureaucracy itself. They found what we now call the Shuihudi bamboo texts. They were buried with an official around 217 BCE, and they're basically his day-to-day work files, the statutes, the regulations, the case studies he used every day, and they show us a system that was just obsessed with precision and accountability. And what's wild is that these texts show that no error was too small to punish. Under the statutes concerning checking, a tiny mistake in the grain accounts could get you a reprimand. A bigger one, you'd be fined the cost of a shield, or maybe even a whole suit of armor. I mean, the system demanded absolute perfection. And this obsession with accountability,
It was everywhere. If a public project, like a city wall, failed, the officials in charge were punished and the laborers had to go rebuild it. Performance wasn't some kind of goal to strive for. It was a legal requirement. And failure? Well, failure had very real, very severe consequences.
Okay, so let's recap. You've got this philosophy of total control. You have a legal system of ruthless precision. What do you get when you put it all together? What's the final output of this machine? The answer: the most efficient and industrialized military force the world had ever seen. You know, we all see the Terracotta Army as this amazing work of art, and it is. But it's probably more accurate to think of it as a product of a massive military-industrial complex. The real marvel isn't just the clay soldiers, it's the perfectly standardized weapons they were all holding. 40,000. That's how many bronze weapons, arrowheads, crossbow triggers, swords, have been found so far. And to the naked eye, they all look identical, like they just rolled off a modern assembly line. But the truth is actually even more impressive. See, analysis of the metal in these weapons shows they weren't all made on one single production line. Nope. The Qin used this astonishingly advanced system that we now call cellular manufacturing. And you might actually know it by another name, the Toyota method. Yeah, so think about it. Instead of an assembly line where one guy makes arrowheads all day and another guy makes the shafts, you had a single, highly skilled workshop that was responsible for producing an entire batch of complete arrows from start to finish. This gave them incredible flexibility and total control over quality. It was a system built for precision. I mean, this connection between ancient Qin workshops and modern manufacturing giants like Toyota is just staggering. We're talking about a level of industrial sophistication that was literally millennia ahead of its time. But, and there's always a but, this perfectly designed, hyper-efficient machine had one fatal flaw. Its greatest strength, that rigid, uncompromising system of control, was also the source of its downfall. Because a machine that can't bend will eventually just break. Can you believe it? After all that, after centuries of brutal warfare to build this empire, it lasted just 15 years. The immense pressure of its laws, the crushing demands of its projects, and just its sheer cruelty made the system incredibly brittle. The second the first emperor died, the whole machine just fell apart under the weight of massive rebellions. So, the legacy of the Qin is this incredible paradox. They created the political and cultural template for China that lasted for 2,000 years. But their super-fast collapse is this stark lesson from history. And it leaves us with this timeless and, I think, really important question. What is the true cost of absolute control? And is that a price any society can really afford to pay for long?